Day 560 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is a super quick update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 266,000 military personnel losses, which represents an addition of 610 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 8 tanks, 12 APVs, and a nearly record whopping 36 artillery, as the record currently stands at 42 in a single day from just a couple of months ago, in fact. Then we'll head back across to the map today, and we'll start out in the north of Ukraine, in fact just beyond the border, as the Russian Volunteer Corps raided a border town within the Russian Oblast of Bryansk. So the RVC are still at it, and the unit wanted to demonstrate how secured the Russian border was. Then they returned back without suffering a single casualty. Then, also in Bryansk, the regional governor there announced that Russian air defenses shot down a drone over the region, with the AFU certainly now keeping them on their toes, at least in terms of air defense. Which leads me to my next location of Moscow, as the Arctic version of the Pantsir S-1 air defense system was spotted as deployed in the Russian capital. Yes, the Arctic version with the Arctic camo, which turns into a pretty clear sign of Russia scrounging for any and all available air defense systems. And like I've said before, Russia will continue to go hard until they have to go home. And this is one such image that gives credence to that notion. Then we'll head across into the Ukrainian map today, just very briefly. So the Ukrainian forces now in fact control more than 80% of Klishchivka, which is the settlement just south of Bakhmut, as Russian troops now try to hold on to the remaining established in the remaining houses of the eastern part of that settlement there. And then I want to quickly show somewhere in the east, a Ukrainian HIMARS strike destroyed a Russian position. The impact of the water surface on this photo gives an idea of how many tungsten fragments are spread in the area. In fact, there's even better examples than this, and more often than not, it will cause injuries that are incompatible with life. Then we'll head down south to the frontline activities, as the Ukrainian army steamrolled the Russian forces near Verbova some more, as Ukrainian infantry has advanced to positions closer once again to this town. And in this event, it's also been noted that Russian soldiers were running away as they got faced with mortar strikes, drone strikes, artillery strikes, and even cluster munitions in one particular event where it all happened in the space of just 2 minutes. So not a great day for them. But to be fair to the larger situation in this region right now, I must inform that just outside of a day ago, one of the British-made Challenger 2 tanks was destroyed in Ukraine. Now, when I first heard about this news, I said to myself, wow, it must have either been because of a 500 kilogram warhead from a cruise missile, which is basically impossible, or a lucky artillery shot like that of a 152 or 203 millimeter heavy artillery piece. And turns out it was the latter. Now, first things first, all the crew survived, which ironically does highlight the tank's survivability in terms of tanky personnel. And you'll also notice that the turret was still attached to the tank in this photo. No turret tossing cook-off included with these. Simply because NATO heavy armor contains isolated shell compartments along the turret that explode outwardly, thus actually being truly designed for human use. But in the end, material losses are to be expected in a war zone, no different to the 5 out of 80 odd Leopard 2s that were destroyed over the past few months. But to give some broader context on these events, amongst both of the armies, there continues to be a large disparity of tanks and other equipment losses by a factor of about 3 to 1 in favor of Ukraine. And so far, Russia has about 2,280 verified tank losses, all with photos, in contrast or stark contrast to Ukraine's 650 tank losses to date. But even then, that's not enough context because bearing in mind, Russia has in total donated about 550 tanks to Ukraine through various captures and abandonments on the field. But hey, just for good measure, the Ukrainian 47th Mechanized Brigade showed how their soldiers destroyed a Russian T-90 tank with the use of just an FPV drone in the last day as well. With this one, including the signature turret tossing cook-off, as to be expected these days. And it still never ceases to amaze me how Russia never updated their latest T-90 tank to overcome this vulnerability. Then we'll briefly head across to the occupied Crimean Peninsula or thereabouts, as new satellite images showed that Russia has just repaired the Kerch Bridge after the July 17th strikes, which inevitably means we'd be likely to see yet another hit on the bridge again soon, to put it out of full operational capacity once more. Then, interestingly, we move across to Romania, as debris from a Russian-launched Shahed drone was found on Romanian territory, just on the border with Ukraine, which was initially denied by Romania as having been such a drone just a couple of days ago. But then, just today, the country confirmed they located fragments of the Shahed drone on their lands, which is a serious matter considering Romania is actually a member of NATO. Now, before you think NATO Article 5 is about to get activated, if anything, it's more likely to be the lesser-known Article 4, which states that any member nation can convene the Council of NATO members to voice their concerns or anger if they believe their territorial integrity has been compromised or security threatened. But given that Romania was playing things very low-key for a couple of days on this event, I sincerely doubt we'll even see a NATO Article 4 provision activated. Then, being a short day, we'll move across to some news today. So, the first batch of ammunition for the Gepard air defense platforms has been delivered from Germany to Ukraine. Now, although Germany provided the Gepard air defense systems to Ukraine in the first place last year, they actually never had the stockpiles of ammo to provide as well. Instead, it came from fairly surprising locations such as Qatar, Brazil, and even Switzerland for a short period of time. But now, Gepard manufacturer Rheinmetall has completed its assembly line for the munitions and finally delivered the first 40,000 of a pledged 300,000 rounds to Ukraine, all of which, of course, helps give a significant boost to Ukraine's air defense capabilities. Then in some more news, which is almost like a mobilization blunder to me, as there was a document spreading over the internet over the past day purporting to be a photo of a mobilization order signed by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu for the amount of 200,000 mobiks. But the Kremlin lashed back pretty quickly in utter denial of the leaked document, calling it a fake and a fabrication. But whether it's a fake or not may not even matter, because when this caused the Kremlin to even have to respond to this document with such vehement denial, it thereby forced them to perform this political maneuvering, which in turn forced them to double down on saying that they won't be doing any more partial mobilization call-ups, which in turn makes the projected outlook for their frontline defenses look even more dismal. Now, should the Kremlin say later on that it's changed its mind and then officially announces a new wave of mobilization, which they inevitably will in some form one way or another, this then has the knock-on effect of losing the public trust even further, making for some pretty dicey homegrown threats and political instability. Or put very simply, all of these events just put the Russian political apparatus and their war efforts in a bit of a jam. Oh, and just for fun, I also found this amazing video loop of Putin seeming to visually explain what happens to his mobilized soldiers. Then, as a bit of a quick final funny to round it all off for today, guys, so as a follow-up to some previous recent events, we've received some new satellite intel to show that the tires on the Russian plane, such as the Tupolev strike aircraft, was not an isolated incident by any means, and not by just one single Russian airfield personnel member, but rather it now appears it was a bloody concerted effort to cover loads of military aircraft in the same way. Look at all those planes. Drones with thermobaric munitions are probably going to have a field day on this flammable rubber. I mean, they've now pretty much eliminated Plan B to fly away when air radar warnings come in. Just incredible. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Just a bit of a shorter video today. I had a lot more stuff to go through, but just, time constraints, all of that. But thanks again for watching. Please leave a comment, subscribe, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.